Good morning, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County to order. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation given by our chaplain, Commissioner White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we're thankful for the clean environment that we enjoy here in Hillsborough County and our wetlands and our beautiful bay. We're also thankful for things like our agricultural industry and commerce that allows us to care for our families, and pray that you will guide this board, our staff and stakeholders this morning as we make decisions that keep all of these things in the right balance. And as always, I pray for our first responders and members of our armed forces, that you will keep them safe and guide them each and every day. I give these thanks and ask for these blessings in your heavenly name. Amen.
Amen. And before we begin, I've got a memo from Commissioner Gwen Myers that I'd like to read into the record. She says, I will be late attending tomorrow's Environmental Protection Commission meeting as I have a conflict. I look forward to joining you during the meeting. Please read this letter into the record for the EPC meeting. And so we'll be seeing Commissioner Myers a little bit later. And at this point, I'll ask the clerk to take the roll call.
Good morning, Commissioners. Smith?
Here.
Holderman?
Here.
Cohen?
Here.
Hagan?
Here.
Kemp?
Here.
Myers? White?
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you. And that brings us to the changes to the agenda. And Director, Ms. Doherty, are we calling you Doherty or Lorton?
Doherty today.
Okay.
Lorton next month.
Okay. And Ms. Doherty and I have worked out some changes because we have some commissioners that are going to have to be leaving early. So before we lose our quorum, we'd like to take some of the action items ahead. So what I'm suggesting is that we do the item 5 recognition, and then public comment, item 6, item 7 consent agenda, and as we get into item 9, the action items, we'll switch up to take the 9B, Executive Director Annual Evaluation, and then 9A, Phosphate Mining, and 9C, the Executive Director Report, and we'll wrap it all up with the Proclamation of World Wetlands Day, 5C, at the end, correct?
That is correct.
All right, so I'd like a motion.
Move the changes.
Second. Thanks. So we have a motion to approve the changes by Commissioner Overman, second by Commissioner Cohen. Let's take a roll call vote.
Smith?
Yes.
Holderman?
Yes.
Cohen?
Yes.
Hagan?
Yes.
Kemp?
Yes.
Myers? White?
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you. And so at that, do we have anything removed? We don't have anything removed from consent.
No, Commissioner.
All right, that takes us to item 5, recognitions. We're going to save the proclamation for later, as I said. So we'll move ahead with the recognition for Ron Nichols, Air Division, upon his retirement of 26 years of service to EPC. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Commissioners, and what an honor it is to recognize Ron Nichols. He is just a delightful person. I've enjoyed all of my workings with him. I'll let you know, to those who've gone to the Clean Air Fair, when you go to the Clean Air Fair and you see somebody playing a banjo, the guitar, and singing, that is Ron and his band. He sang at Leslie Campbell's retirement. He brought his motorcycle to Rick Schaunce's retirement. He's an avid motorcyclist as well. But he is I don't want to say he is the life of the party. He has such a great sense of humor, and he's been such a valuable asset in the air monitoring program, and we are going to miss him. And so today we have Reggie Sanford, who will confer his Lifetime Achievement Award to him and say a few words about Ron to you. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Sanford, the Air Director.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Yes, Commissioners, as Ms. Doherty said, today we're here to celebrate the career of Ron Nichols, who retired after more than 26 years of service to the agency. I have a very short presentation I'd like to share with you at this time. Ron began his career with EPC in 1994, serving as an electronic technician in the air monitoring section. And before this, he served in the U.S. Air Force. Ron was one of several technicians tasked with keeping our vital air monitoring equipment operating year-round, 24 hours a day. During his tenure with the monitoring group, his group was nationally recognized for the quality of work that they bring to the table day in and day out. Ron's dedication and hard work and willingness to help were a definite asset to not only the division, but the agency. As Ms. Doherty mentioned, Ron is a multi-talented person who graced us over the years with his poetry and musical talents. Thus, you see this guitar wordle in front of you. This guitar is composed of words that staff put together to recognize their impression and their good feelings toward Ron and the things that he did for us. Ron and his band played regularly at the Clean Air Fair. The Clean Air Fair is a highlight outreach event of the agency, and it was just a wonderful time anytime you go there on that first Thursday in May to see Ron and his group playing. Ron was presented the EPC Lifetime Achievement Award, and it reads as follows. The Lifetime Achievement Award is presented to Ron Nichols. Thank you for your dedicated service to the EPC and the citizens of Hillsborough County. Best wishes always to you and your family. At this time, Ron is actually here in the office. He's joined by his wife, Lori, and at this time, I'd like to allow them a few moments to give you a few words.
Oh.
Hello.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I've been here a long time. Seen the ups and seen the downs and seen the goods, and seen the bads, but mostly everything was good. I drove 135 miles round trip every day to work for 30-some years or 20-some years. So I guess I liked coming here and doing this job. It really was. It was good. I love the people. And, it's been my life, really. And I can't complain about anything, to tell you the truth. Everybody was great. And I just appreciate everything that's been done. I loved working here. That's about all I got to say. Got to say anything, babe?
I'm just glad that they put up with you for 26 years.
Yeah, me too. No, that's true. You do got to put that in there, that's for sure. Yeah. It was not the most politically correct person, that's for sure. I'd say that, but anyway.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Lori. I would just add that Ron is someone that if you're having a low day and you talk to Ron, he'll perk you up without a doubt. And I just want to tell Ron and his wife, Lori, that, You formed that group, like I said before, that was nationally recognized. When people needed something done that worked in other areas of the country, they would call our monitoring section and ask for advice when it comes to equipment or, anything. And I just want to let you know, Ron, from the agency to you, you will be sorely missed. We truly appreciate everything you brought to the table. And we look forward to seeing you at some of the events once we get out of the COVID era.
I hope so. Yeah, I'll be looking forward to coming too. I appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Thanks for everything.
I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Doherty.
Thank you so much, Reggie. We appreciate it. And thank you so much, Ron. And listen, to your wife, it was our pleasure. He made me laugh, I think probably more than anyone in the agency. And it was such a pleasure to have him around. And I always appreciated Ron because Ron was very direct. And if he saw a problem, he's going to let you know about it. And that's the way we fix problems and find solutions. So, Ron, I know we're going to get together for lunch today. And I gave you a great big hug there. And it's good to see you. And we'll enjoy having time with your wife as well. So thank you for your years of service to the agency. We love you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
And I'd just like to say, I know that I speak for the whole board when we wish you a wonderful next chapter in your retirement. It sounds like you'll be able to enjoy that with your lovely wife and your sense of humor and happiness. And we wish you just a wonderful retirement after all you've done for our Environmental Protection Commission. The Air Division is really important to our environment, but also to each and every one of our residents in Hillsborough County and the health of our children. And so we very much appreciate your work. And we know that as we lose someone with 26 years experience, we have a lot to fill in the agency behind you. But go with our very best wishes and enjoy your day and your Wordle and the best wishes of your coworkers and your board.
Thank you.
And with that, we will move to item 6 is public comment. I'm told we have no public comment this morning. So
Correct.
That's
Correct.
For the record, we have no public comment. And that brings us to the approval of the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
I have a motion to approve by Commissioner Overman, second by Commissioner Cohen. Seeing no further discussion, let's take a roll call vote.
Smith,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yeah.
Kemp,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you. And as we said at the beginning of the meeting, in item 9, the regular agenda, we're going to switch things up a bit and start with item 9B, the executive director's evaluation. And Elaine DeLue is going to present that item for us.
Correct.
Ms. DeLue.
Elaine DeLue, Director of Administration and Finance.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Elaine DeLue, EPC staff. The EPC Executive Director's performance is evaluated by the Commission annually. The evaluation forms for Ms. Doherty were provided in the agenda packet and were discussed at the October EPC Commission meeting. The assessment scores from the Commissioners have been compiled. They were provided in the agenda packet. Thank you for providing the reports back to Commissioner Smith's office and to David Young for coordinating the evaluations. For today, the Commission has an opportunity to provide additional feedback and complete the evaluation process. At this point, I turn it back to the Commission.
Thank you, Ms. DeLue. And this will bring us to board discussion. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Janet received outstanding scores, and she's doing a great job of running this agency. I believe when we recently completed the evaluations of, on the county commission side of the house, the county administrator and the county attorney believe we gave each of them a 4% pay raise and extended their contracts to 2025. And I believe in this particular case, because we're a little late getting to Janet's, I think if we do a pay raise, I believe it would be in order to do it retroactively to the beginning of the fiscal year, if I'm not mistaken. So I would move to do for Janet exactly what we did for the county administrator and the county attorney, which is a 4% pay raise. And in the motion, I would direct staff to extend her contract to a date to expire on the same date as the county administrator and county attorney.
Second. And that, excuse me, but that would be in December.
I don't remember the month. I just know we extended it to 2025, but in the motion.
Oh, wait, no, it's, I believe that we've had, sorry, I believe we've had a problem with it being in December and extending it to the same date as the other administrator and other people that you mentioned gets us back to October, which is what it always was historically, and December's been a bit of a problem, actually, recently.
If
So-
I could clarify that, if I could clarify, the evaluation process being in December, that's what we're asking to move back to October. But the actual extension of the contract would align with December of 2025. So they're two different items. And what we'd like to ask is for the board, when they make the motion, for the chair to be able to work with EPC on these changes and then execute the contract. So it would be to extend the contract to December of 2025, to move the evaluation assessment to October, or the month after October, if for some reason an October meeting was canceled, and then to give the 4% increase.
Okay, so I'll move that. The 4% pay increase, the extension to December of 2025, and the change of the evaluation month to October.
And thank you very much. I just wasn't quite clear about the October, December, and thanks, Ms. DeLeo, for clarifying that.
Second.
So we've got a motion to do all of that by Commissioner White and a second by Commissioner Kemp. And I see Commissioner Overman in the queue. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I would like to say that it is of great pleasure to not only extend the contract, but also to acknowledge the great scores that you got. And that was earned. One of the values of public service is to be able to assure our citizens that the folks that are working on their behalf are able to provide confidence in the work that we do and the value of that work. Not only have we experienced that in the EPC, but we've experienced in how you manage your team. There has been an amazing amount of dedication among all of those that work at the EPC. It's not only clear that they're passionate about what they do, but they're passionate about their team members and how they interact in the work that they do. That shows greatly in the great work that is done. And making sure and proving and reiterating how important that is, I think gives our residents and our citizens that live within Hillsborough County confidence that the work that they are providing or through tax revenues and other things is being very well spent. And I just want to thank you because I have the utmost confidence in your leadership within EPC, and I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. And Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
And I'll just say in the year after year, it's just been an excellent experience. I think the stellar review demonstrates that. Your work is just so strong, and that sense of cohesion at the agency, and just when we find out that there's inefficiencies or problems, the ability to go there and deal with those issues and change them. It's just like everyone, I think I speak for everyone, we have just such confidence in what's being done at the EPC, and also that sense of, each member of the EPC staff just kind of working with just such strength and dedication and passion for what they do and for that agency as a whole. It truly operates like a family.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Cohen, you recognize.
Yes, thank you very much. I wanted to make the point that I was the only commissioner that did not give Ms. Doherty a perfect score. The reason, however, is that I don't ever give a perfect score on the theory that next year can always be better. And I wanted to just say on the record that I have the utmost confidence and not just confidence, but enthusiasm for the way in which our director runs this agency. And I could not be happier to vote for your contract extension as well as the increase. And I also want to just share something that happened this week that I think really is a testament to what a great job our EPC does. And Commissioner Smith is going to recognize this story because it comes from Tampa Bay Water. Tampa Bay Water made an application to increase its pumping capacity, its permitted pumping capacity in some of our South County well fields. And when they went to the EPC to discuss this application, the EPC ended up giving them some recommendations that they actually incorporated as conditions into this permit application. One of them was that once they had the need for the additional pumping capacity expired, they would pull back to the original amount. The second was that there would be much more robust monitoring of any environmental impacts associated with the work that was being undertaken. And both of these conditions were suggested by the EPC directly. They were not things that were part of Tampa Bay Water's original application. And, I just wanted to, this is something that would have gone unnoticed because, unfortunately, there's not a lot of attention paid to what goes on at Tampa Bay Water. But it's these types of actions that go on that just give us all such confidence that everything is being watched and that no stone is being left unturned as we navigate the different things that we have to deal with. We really are thinking first and foremost about the environment and making sure that we put protections in place that protect, in this case, our water supply. So I just wanted to thank you again for your stewardship of the agency, and I wanted to thank the agency for this, because I know Commissioner Smith and I were very impressed and proud of our EPC when this item came up at Tampa Bay Water. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I would like to recognize the scientific team that went through that, Allison Amram, Heidi Leslie, and the legal department. And I'd like to recognize Tampa Bay Water. Warren Hogg and I had many conversations, but they worked in a very collaborative manner. So it was a win-win, and those small things you can do for the environment, they add up over time. And so it's a great thing. So thank you so much for your comments. And Commissioner, I actually didn't give myself perfect marks either in my self-evaluation, because I always believe there's room for improvement as well.
Thank you. And seeing no one else in the queue, I'll wrap it up by saying when we're talking about imperfect scores, we're talking about like a 4.8 instead of a 5. So on a couple of things. So it's all pretty darn close to perfect. And that's a reflection of the confidence that your board has in you, and we represent the public and the public's confidence in our EPC. And thank you, Commissioner Cohen, for bringing a little specificity to the examples of the expertise that is brought to the protection of our wetlands, our air, our whole environment. In a lot of cases, habitat things come into play. And not only expertise, but courage. you know, it does take substantial courage to be in those meetings with the other scientists that have everyone a good heart about what they're trying to do, but coming from a different perspective about needing to get water in a cost-effective way versus needing to make sure our well fields aren't pumped unnecessarily or for any longer than need be. That it takes an amount of courage to be the director of this agency in examples like that, in helping to advise us during the recent fertilizer ordinance, in all the permitting that you do day in and day out, and taking the customer service calls. There is the easy way. There's the expedient way. There's sometimes the, let's just close the deal way. And then there's the right way. And we definitely count on you to find the right way, even when it's hard. But also, Janet, I've known Janet a very long time before this, and I know where your heart is. I know that you're very passionate about protecting the environment. But I know that even where it takes courage, even where the discussions are difficult, you also have an ambassadorial way of negotiating through keeping the conversations respectful. In all cases, you have a real flair for that as well. So I'm very happy to be supporting at least the same kind of raise that in line with our administrator and auditor and others that we've been giving. That is money well spent, and it's well worth it for our citizens. So with that, Ms. Doherty, do you have anything to add?
I do. I just want to thank everybody for your confidence, your vote of confidence, and I want to thank staff. I mean, EPC has excellent staff, and they know that this board supports them and supports our mission. And that's important, to be able to have that courage. If we didn't know that we had 7 members that are passionate about the environment, that gives us the courage to always do the right thing and make the right decisions. But my staff works tirelessly. They're very dedicated. And Commissioner Kemp, you're right. They are family. I've been here 6 years. And truly, I have made so many close friends that will last me for the rest of my life at this agency. So with that, again, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And yes, Commissioner, I remember speaking with you and some of the other commissioners, Commissioner Kemp, on many environmental issues right there many, many times. So again, thank you all so much for your vote of confidence. And I appreciate you moving the evaluation. That'll give us much more synergy when the annual report happens. And it will be in line with Ms. Caskey and Ms. Beck. So it just makes it easier than having several months. And also, Commissioner Cohen, you'll remember new board members come on and they've never worked with me. So it's hard for them to assess me at that time. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
All right, and with that, we have a motion by Commissioner White, second by Commissioner Kemp. Let's take a roll call vote.
Smith,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried 6-0.
Okay, and from here, we're going to back up a notch to item 9A, the phosphate mining and reclamation update by Mary James. Janet,
Commissioner.
Ms. Doherty, do you want to introduce that?
Yes, we will move to item 9A, which is phosphate mining and reclamation overview. This is a very robust presentation with a lot of information. It's something that you may want to go back and watch again on HTV, which you can do. But I'll be Mary James. I'll be introducing her. She came to us from the private sector and And what a win for the agency. She is an ecologist background and knows a lot about reclamation and mining. So with that, Mary?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mary James, and it's my honor to provide you with this overview on phosphate mining and reclamation in Hillsborough County. If you'll give me just a moment, I'll share my presentation. I'd like to start with a little history because I think it's helpful to understanding where we are today. Here you see an 1892 map showing the phosphate regions of Florida. The dark red area indicates the lower grade hard rock phosphate deposits, and the light pink areas are the high grade pebble deposits. These deposits accumulated in a near shore environment between 5 to 15 million years ago. Phosphate mining in Florida began in 1883 with low-grade hard rock mining in Alachua County, but within 5 years, much higher grade and more concentrated pebble phosphate deposits were discovered in the upper Peace River, and river pebble mining began there in Polk County in 1888. These high-grade pebble deposits became geologically known as the Bone Valley Formation due to the extensive fossil record they contain. By 1891, there were 4 different mining operations established along the Alafia River in Hillsborough County, and 3 others under consideration. Here's an 1890 photo showing what early hard rock mining looked like around Dunellen in Marion County. As you can see, all manual labor and simple tools such as pickaxes, wheelbarrows, and wooden ramps. Hard rock mining in Florida eventually ended around 1960 due to technical and economic constraints compared to pebble mining. Here's an 1895 photo showing a river pebble mining operation on the Peace River. Still fairly limited technology, but much more bang for the buck in terms of high quality yield compared to hard rock mining. And here's an 1891 map by Schrader that shows a total of 22 different pebble phosphate mining companies established along the Peace and Alafia rivers. Another 8 companies were in the process of establishing operations along these rivers and tributaries at the time this map was made in 1891. With the advent of electrically powered draglines in the 1920s, production rates skyrocketed in the Bone Valley region and continue to increase with technology over the next 50 years or so, resulting in the modern walking draglines in use today, with booms upward of 300 feet long and buckets capable of excavating 80 cubic yards per scoop. Today, there are only 2 phosphate mining companies left operating in the state. One, the Mosaic Company, operating in the Bone Valley region or Central Florida Phosphate District, and 2, Nutrien, which operates a mine just north of the Suwannee River in Hamilton County. The result of this approximately 140-year evolution of phosphate mining in Florida is roughly depicted on this map from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. This tan area represents the approximate limits of Bone Valley deposits, or the Central Florida Phosphate District. These dark gray areas represent non-mandatory mines, which operated prior to 1975, before the state began requiring reclamation of mine lands. These non-mandatory areas are affectionately known as old lands, and as you can see, they are concentrated in the north half of the Bone Valley region, where deposits were generally shallower and higher grade, and therefore mined earlier than deposits further south. The multicolored areas represent mandatory mines, which were permitted after 1975, and therefore subject to state reclamation requirements that require a return of the land to beneficial use, rather than allowing essentially open mine pits with steep slopes to remain. Just to provide you with some examples of publicly owned, non-mandatory old lands in Hillsborough County, here is a 1968 aerial showing historic mining signatures north of State Road 60 and east of Valrico in the Sydney-Dover area. Hillsborough County is the current owner of the folios outlined in red, approximately 1,500 acres, which includes the Valrico wastewater treatment facility and 2 parks. About 2 miles to the southeast of there is Medard Park, where mining was just beginning in the northwest corner according to this 1957 aerial. These folios outlined in yellow are now owned by the Water Management District and contain about 1,300 acres that were mined prior to 1975, including this tributary formerly known as the Little Alafia River. Now, most of Medard Park is occupied by a large reservoir where the Little Alafia River used to be. You can also see extensive unreclaimed mining signatures east and west of Medard, but most of those areas are now privately owned. Moving to the south about 10 miles, we have a 1973 aerial showing an unreclaimed, non-mandatory mining in the vicinity of what is now the C.W. Bill Young Reservoir. These old lands folios include approximately 800 acres owned by the Water Management District at the reservoir, approximately 2,000 acres owned by the state in the western part of the Alafia River State Park, and approximately 3,300 acres outlined in orange that are owned by Hillsborough County, including the Southeast County landfill, the Sheriff's Office training facility, and the eastern portion of the Bomboyette Nature Preserve. Fast forwarding again to modern times and mandatory mines that required reclamation, here is a 2018 map from Florida Trend magazine showing Mosaic holdings in the Central Florida Phosphate District. The blue areas show the locations of active mines, and most of the tan areas are either inactive mines where mining is complete or potential future mines. Some of Mosaic's smaller holdings, such as the Riverview Chemical Processing Plant and offices, are also shown in tan. Combined, Mosaic's land holdings in Florida total approximately 300,000 acres, making Mosaic the 7th largest landowner in the state. Mosaic's holdings in Hillsborough County include approximately 62,600 acres, or about 8% of the county. According to Mosaic, completion of authorized mining in Hillsborough is expected by the 4th quarter of 2023, and no new mining is currently proposed. Mining in Polk County was completed after this map was made in 2018, according to Mosaic. In Northeast Manatee County, approximately 17,000 acres have been approved for mining to date. Mosaic holds an additional approximately 20,000 acres in Southeast Manatee County that have not been approved or applied for. In Hardee County, approximately 89,000 acres have been approved for mining, with approximately 18,000 acres mined or disturbed to date. Mosaic also holds approximately 18,000 acres in Northwest DeSoto County. DEP approved the conceptual plan for the DeSoto mine in 2017, but in 2018, DeSoto County voted against the rezone required for mining. Focusing now on Hillsborough County, here is an aerial showing Mosaic's mines and mining units in the southeastern corner of our county. The areas shaded green and orange include the Hopewell, Kingsford, Big Four, Lonesome, and Four Corners mines, which total 59,336 acres according to 2020-21 annual reports for the corresponding operating permits. Approximately 63%, or 38,000 acres of this permitted area has been mined or disturbed by mining, and about 37%, or 22,000 acres, were not disturbed by mining, mostly consisting of 25-year floodplains and other significant preservation areas. In Hillsborough County, the permitted areas are divided into approximately 78 mining units, indicated here by the bold black divider lines, for which more detailed mining, reclamation, and wetland mitigation plans have been approved. The area shown in pink at the bend in the south prong of the Alafia River is the Alafia River State Park, which includes approximately 8,000 acres, most of which was previously mined. This land was donated to the state in 1996 by SciTech Industries, a subsidiary of the former phosphate mining company, American Cyanamid. So how did all these mining units get approved? Here is a simplified diagram to show the basic process outlined in the Land Development Code. It all starts with an approved operating permit, most of which were issued through the Development of Regional Impact Review process. After an operating permit was approved, Development Services received individual mining unit applications and distributed them to multiple reviewing entities for comment. Those agencies that conducted primarily environmental reviews are indicated in green text. From there, the mining unit applications went to a phosphate hearing master and were set for public hearing, where the commission voted either to approve or deny the application. It is important to note that the last mining unit approved by the county was in 2015 for Lonesome Mining Unit 23, where a single Mosaic dragline is currently mining. As previously mentioned, all authorized mining in Hillsborough County is expected to be completed in late 2023, and no new mining is currently proposed. The EPC Wetlands Division, along with several other reviewing agencies, had a separate but corollary permitting process that was required for favorable comment on a mining unit application. Through this process, EPC evaluated the proposed wetland impacts, size, type, and location, and approved a portion of them, which typically accounted for approximately 15% of the mining unit area. A mitigation plan was also required to compensate for the wetland impacts on an acre-for-acre, type-for-type basis. This plan includes the details of where and how the wetlands will be created after mining is complete, in addition to monitoring and reporting requirements and the success criteria that will be used to evaluate when the mitigation is complete. As an example, here's a map from the approved Lonesome Mining Unit 19 mitigation plan showing EPC mitigation wetlands in green. This mitigation plan, like many others, is currently undergoing an amendment process to evaluate and accommodate changes in wetland shape and location that have occurred for various reasons since the initial plan was approved 15 years ago prior to mining. After the preliminary permitting is done and all the necessary approvals have been obtained, mining site prep can begin. A perimeter ditch and berm system is constructed, as you can see here, which serves multiple purposes. The berm is primarily used for vehicular traffic, so the mining unit boundary can be easily inspected. The recharge ditch affords some protection to adjacent preserved wetlands by maintaining a hydrostatic head between them and adjacent mine cuts. It also captures potentially turbid runoff from the mining area and prevents it from going off-site. The recharge ditch also serves as a recirculation system during the mining process, where water from the mine cuts can be pumped and stored. Other activities that may occur during the site prep phase include relocation of threatened and endangered wildlife species for fish and wildlife requirements, and salvaging suitable wetland muck or upland topsoil that may be applied to reclamation sites to jumpstart the revegetation process. In this image from 2010, again of Lonesome Mining Unit 19, you can see site prep is complete at the north end and mining is progressing from south to north. After site prep activities are complete, extraction through strip mining can begin. Here's an illustration showing that the dragline has to first remove and cast aside approximately 30 to 40 feet of overlying sediments or overburden before reaching the desired matrix. This desired matrix layer contains approximately equal parts sand, clay, and phosphate pebble, and typically varies from between 10 to 30 feet thick. After the dragline excavates the matrix, it is deposited nearby and forced through a coarse screen using a high-pressure water cannon. After passing through the screen, the matrix slurry is then pumped through pipelines, often for miles, to the beneficiation plant for further processing and separation. For Hillsborough, Hardee, and the northeast part of Manatee County, that beneficiation plant is located at Four Corners, which was constructed half in Manatee County and half in Hillsborough County. Here, the slurry matrix pumped from the various mine sites is separated into its components, sand, clay, and phosphate pebble, through screening and flotation. The sand tailings are then pumped back to the mine site to be used in reclamation. The clays are pumped to a clay settling area for long-term storage and drying, and the clean phosphate pebble, or ore, is transported by rail to one of the 3 active chemical processing facilities, either Riverview, New Wales, or Bartow, if you recall from the Water Division's presentation in November. At the chemical processing facility, the basically inert phosphate ore is combined with sulfuric acid to produce phosphoric acid, a nutrient that can be easily assimilated by plants. And phosphogypsum is created as the waste product. Before we finish the mining part of the presentation, I'd like to try to address 2 of Commissioner Kemp's questions from the September meeting. How much water is used in the phosphate mining process and where, and what permits are there? According to the Southwest Florida Water Management District, there are 3 active water use permits associated with phosphate mining and processing in Hillsborough County. The largest of these is known as the Integrated Water Use Permit, which covers all 5 counties and approximately 317,000 acres in the Central Florida Phosphate District. When this permit was first issued in 2012, it combined 7 prior water use permits into one, reducing overall quantities by approximately 30%. It allows withdrawals of 69.6 million gallons per day, with the largest portion of that allowance, approximately 20%, allocated to the Four Corners facility. According to Mosaic, actual average daily usage since 2014 is approximately 44 million gallons per day, with approximately 1/3 of that associated with mining and approximately 2/3 associated with processing or manufacturing. Withdrawals were permitted from nearly 200 different wells throughout the region, approximately half of which were existing and half of which were proposed at the time the permit was issued. Mosaic's other 2 water use permits involve lesser quantities and are associated with operations at the Riverview Chemical Processing Facility. One allows approximately 6 million gallons a day to be withdrawn from Mosaic's property at Buckhorn and Lithia Springs, and the other allows approximately 4 million gallons per day to be withdrawn from the Upper Alafia Basin to augment the river if and when water levels approach the minimum flow established by the Water Management District. Another very important mining-related topic that was mentioned by Commissioner White during the November Commission meeting is the Phosphate Severance Tax. This is a state excise tax that phosphate mining companies must pay based on their reported tonnage of phosphate severed or extracted from soils or waters of the state. Through the end of 2022, the tax rate is established at $1.80 per ton by Florida statute, and tax revenues are allocated as you see here, with a combined approximately 55% going to the general revenue and state park trust funds, and 11.5% going to the counties where the phosphate was mined. Since mining is simultaneously occurring in 3 counties at present, the 11.5% is proportionally allocated according to the tonnage severed from each county. There is also an added stipulation for the counties that these proceeds can only be used for phosphate-related expenses that support the industry in some fashion. Now, on to reclamation, the rebuilding of the landscape after it has been mined. The first step in reclamation is to restore the topography to some semblance of its pre-mining condition. This is accomplished through earth moving and contouring with heavy equipment. First, the mine cuts are backfilled with overburden and sand tailings pumped from the beneficiation plant. Dozers and graders are then used to recontour the land surface to match permit-approved grades. If any salvaged wetland muck or upland topsoils are available, these are then placed and spread in select areas. To verify that the targeted grades have been achieved, EPC requires as-built surveys for all mitigation wetlands with elevations measured on 50-foot centers. An example of an as-built survey is shown here at lower left, and an approved reclamation topography map for Lonesome Mining Unit 22 is shown in the lower right. After the targeted elevations have been achieved, vegetation is installed according to the approved reclamation land use. For EPC mitigation wetlands, this includes a wide variety of wetland trees, shrubs, and ground cover species that are native to the region and suitable to the targeted wetland type and zone. Here you see a typical newly created forested wetland with 1-gallon trees planted to achieve a starting density of approximately 600 trees per acre. As you can see, not all wetland areas and types are inundated year-round or to the same depths. This means that the planting list needs to be specifically tailored to match the planted species to their preferred wetland zone so that optimal growth and survival can be achieved. These initial planting efforts are supplemented through natural recruitment, either from propagules in the salvaged muck or seeds that may be transported by wind or water from adjacent sites. This slide shows the different types of wetland plant communities that are targeted in EPC mitigation plans. We have 3 types of forested wetlands, 3 types of non-forested wetlands, and occasionally surface water mitigation, such as lakes and small streams. These community types primarily differ in terms of hydroperiod, or the length of time the wetland is inundated, which has a significant effect on plant species composition and structure. Once initial planting is complete, the mitigation wetlands enter a period of monitoring and maintenance. This includes annual quantitative monitoring in the fall until success is achieved, and annual qualitative monitoring in the spring for the first 3 years. For the quantitative monitoring, vegetation is assessed along belt transects that traverse the wetland. Parameters measured include tree density, tree height, percent desirable or native wetland ground cover, percent undesirable invasive vegetation, and water depth. The resulting monitoring reports are provided to EPC on an annual basis and are evaluated to determine if the wetland is trending towards success or if additional planting or maintenance of invasive species may be needed. For EPC, these evaluations are supplemented with 2 inspection days per quarter to ensure that the report data is representative of the wetland as a whole. At present, monitoring is occurring on approximately 1,240 acres of EPC mitigation wetlands located throughout all 5 mines in Hillsborough County. So how does EPC determine when a mitigation wetland has reached success and can be released from further monitoring requirements? We have success criteria, or minimum benchmarks, required for all forested and non-forested community types. Once these benchmarks are achieved and verified by site inspection, EPC issues a certificate of completion and no further monitoring is required. For non-forested wetlands, success is typically achieved in about 5 years, whereas forested wetlands typically require about 15 years to reach success. Beginning around 1998, EPC began requiring conservation easements for all mitigation wetlands greater than a half acre in size, which includes the vast majority of Mosaic's mitigation wetlands. After the wetlands are successful and released, the conservation easement is granted to EPC by Mosaic and recorded in Hillsborough County official records. From that date going forth, activities such as filling, draining, or placement of structures or utilities that would be detrimental to the health of the wetland are prohibited. EPC tries to conduct inspections of these easements on a 3-year rotation, more frequently through remote aerial reviews. When all mitigation requirements are complete, EPC expects to hold approximately 3,100 acres of conservation easements. So, where do we stand now with EPC mitigation for wetland impacts? Out of a total of 5,030 acres required, 2,275 acres, or approximately 45% of the wetland mitigation, has been released. This includes approximately 50% of required non-forested wetlands and approximately 40% of required forested wetlands. 653 acres of conservation easements over release mitigation wetlands have been recorded, or approximately 20% of the total anticipated upon completion of all mitigation requirements. So, all in all, pretty good. We're almost halfway there. So what about the overall mining unit reclamation, which is overseen by administrative county staff and includes all uplands in the mining unit in addition to other wetlands that are not EPC mitigation? Well, according to the latest annual reports for all of the operating permits, DRI 263, DRI 80, and Hopewell, approximately 15,000 out of 60,000 acres, or about 25% of the overall reclamation, has been released. The county's reclamation standards differ from EPC's and vary by location and targeted land use type, but typically require a minimum of 200 trees per acre and a maximum of 10% cover of invasive vegetation for forested habitats. Non-forested land uses, such as pastures, accounted for the majority of many mining units prior to mining, so are also well represented in the post-reclamation plans for those mining units. While on the subject of uplands, I'd like to address another question from a prior meeting, this one from Commissioner Overman in November. Can Mosaic help gopher tortoise relocation efforts by setting aside lands they own? Gopher tortoises are a state-listed threatened species that are regulated by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. In 2008, FWC developed its first comprehensive gopher tortoise permitting guidelines, and they have been revised 9 times since then. At present, 4 types of recipient sites are recognized based on varying levels of protection, and each type has different criteria for size, soils, and vegetation. Mosaic does not currently hold any active recipient site permits for gopher tortoises in Hillsborough County, but did prior to 2008 when the guidelines were first adopted and may again in the future. Mosaic does, however, hold at least 2 active gopher tortoise recipient site permits in other counties that are approved for relocation of tortoises from other Mosaic lands. One is at an unmined site in Manatee County known as the Mosaic Wellfield, and one is in Hardy County on approximately 281 acres of reclaimed lands. So what are some of the current uses of reclaimed lands? First and foremost, even before the reclamation is released, this vast and mostly roadless landscape provides important wildlife habitat and conservation value. Reclaimed wetlands also provide water quality improvement and stormwater attenuation through filtration and storage, and the vegetated landscape as a whole sequesters carbon dioxide that would otherwise remain in the atmosphere. Recreation is another popular use for previously mined lands. As mentioned earlier, there are a number of publicly owned parks in Hillsborough County that were created around non-mandatory lands: Medard, Sydney Dover, Bomboyette, and the Alafai River State Park, which includes both mandatory and non-mandatory lands. Golf, fishing, equestrian, hiking, biking, and bird watching are just some of the activities associated with reclaimed recreation lands. Agriculture in various forms is another primary use for reclaimed lands. Majority of the uplands were used for grazing prior to mining, and many of the upland acres are returned to that same purpose after mining. Some reclaimed lands are also designated as pine plantations and used for timber production. Mosaic also reports success with sod and hay production on reclaimed lands, in addition to a wide variety of row crops. To date, residential and commercial use has been relatively limited, but there are a few examples from Polk County. In South Lakeland, the Grasslands and Oak Bridge subdivisions, approximately 1,500 homes, and golf course were constructed on non-mandatory lands beginning in the mid-1980s, and the adjacent Lakeside Village Mall was constructed in 2005. Also, near Mulberry, 2 manufactured home communities, Anglers Green and Paradise Lakes, were constructed on old lands beginning in the late 1980s. Mosaic has also created the Stream Song Resort in Polk County on reclaimed lands in 2013. The resort offers lodging and meeting facilities, 4 restaurants, 2 golf courses, a spa, fishing, sporting clays, and archery. During the September meeting, Commissioner Kemp asked a couple of questions related to uses of reclaimed lands. How soon can an area be used for homes or commercial purposes after it is reclaimed? And is reclaimed land stable? First, in order for reclaimed lands to be considered for residential or commercial purposes, they must be released by DEP and Hillsborough County from their reclamation and DRI requirements. These reclamation standards include some stability requirements, such as 4-to-1 slopes, % vegetative cover, and similar erosion controls. Depending on the proposed residential or commercial use, additional stability analysis may also be warranted once an area is released. Clay settling areas, which occupy approximately 40% of the post-mining landscape, are generally unsuitable for structures. However, many of the uplands may be suited for a variety of structures and uses. Some of the older reclamation sites, however, were constructed with a sand-clay mix and may have a more variable substrate. It would behoove any potential owner to conduct a site-specific stability assessment to ensure the substrate will be suitable for their proposed use. A majority of the reclaimed lands are currently zoned AM, agricultural mining, which allows for 1 residential unit per 20 acres. Any proposed unit uses would be subject to standard development procedures. Wetlands, of course, are generally unsuitable for development, but would not necessarily have to be released for development on adjacent uplands to proceed. Released wetlands in the surrounding landscape are protected by conservation easements and/or local, state, and federal wetland rules, and unreleased wetlands are protected through existing permits and mitigation agreements. This concludes the main part of my presentation, so I'd like to finish with a summary of the highlights. Number 1, after more than 130 years of phosphate mining in Hillsborough County, all currently authorized mining is expected to end within the next 2 years. No new mining has been proposed since 2015. Number 2, when mining ends in Hillsborough County, so will our portion of the severance tax revenues. 3, a lot of reclamation remains to be completed. Approximately 2,300 acres of wetland mitigation for EPC and approximately 45,000 acres of uplands and other wetlands for the county as a whole. Based on historic trends, this is expected to require at least 2 more decades of EPC oversight, even longer for county staff. There is concern that this leaves us in an unfunded mandate situation given the predicted loss of severance tax revenues. Alternative funding sources will be needed to see the reclamation through to its rightful completion. 4. EPC will hold approximately 3,100 acres in conservation easements when mitigation is complete, which will be protected in perpetuity. Mining continues in Manatee County and is expected to continue in Hardy County for quite some time, with approximately 70,000 acres permitted left to mine. Mosaic's approximately 38,000 acres of holdings in DeSoto and southeast Manatee could further extend mining in the region for decades if permitted. As long as mining continues in the region, beneficiation at Four Corners and chemical processing at Riverview is expected to continue. Reclaimed lands as a whole are suitable for multiple uses: conservation, recreation, agriculture, energy production, and in some cases, commercial and residential. Finally, once uplands are released, future land use will be determined by the owner and local government procedures. And with that, commissioners, thank you very much for listening to this presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. James, and welcome to EPC. This is your first presentation to the board, and let me just start off the comments by saying that was very well done, very thorough, and yet concise and clear, and I really appreciate your attention to answering, I know we all do, your attention to answering specific questions from board members. Very well done. And I'll move to board discussion, starting with Commissioner Overman.
Thank you. And yes, thank you very much for that wonderful, thorough presentation. And it was reminding us of the questions we had and bringing back the data and the answers as much as possible is critically important. And with that, you've brought out some important things that the EPC and the Board of County Commission need to acknowledge when addressing the severance tax allocations and the fact that it will stop when Hillsborough County is no longer mining, which, if I understood your presentation correctly, for the areas within Hillsborough County, that is going to stop in 2023. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am. That is the expected date when all authorized mining will conclude.
Excellent. So thank you. Currently, it looks like the county specifically would receive, or has been receiving, based on tonnage, 11.5%. So, and that has gone towards actually doing covering the cost of reclamation, making sure that the monitoring is being done to ensure that those ponds and other things that are cared for and potentially for reclamation are done. My concern is the financial analysis that's necessary to determine, once that tax is done, what the cost, given the timelines for reclamation and monitoring, go beyond when the revenue stops. So I'm not quite sure how to approach this, but I'd like to open it up for board discussion to consider asking for a financial analysis of what that cost might entail, and a calculation of the actual revenue that we've been receiving per acre, and then what that deficit looks like, because it would appear as though EPC would need to advise the Board of County Commission on not only what that deficit might look like, or that ongoing cost needs to look like, but also to explore where, given the state has I'm always looking to try and figure out why we took money away from the Stowski Trust for housing. But given that about 25% of the previous stock stamp revenue that went to the state is now going towards climate change, sea level rise, mitigation, and things along those lines, where there's an opportunity to use grant application for replacing and repairing those lands as that severance tax is done. So I just wanted to sort of look down the road financially to determine whether general revenues is going to have to be used out of the county's budget, especially in areas that are underfunded at the moment when it comes to unincorporated Hillsborough County. But also, how do we replace those funds to make sure that the maintenance and the care and monitoring and reclamation is in fact paid for as that proceeds?
Excuse me, I just want to clarify something in case, I guess it wasn't clear from my presentation, but the Mosaic is still providing the cost of reclamation. The severance tax revenues have been used to support our monitoring and oversight of the reclamation, but they are paying for the construction costs and revegetation costs and everything associated with that. And they also do provide a form of financial assurance based on the estimated liability and remaining reclamation that is documented in the annual reports submitted to the county. And just one other clarification, the 11.5% is distributed amongst all the counties based upon the percentage of rock mined in each county. Thank you.
And Commissioner, if I may, you know, we've been monitoring this fund. I've had several meetings over the past years prior to COVID with Tom Fessler and John Lyons. Kevin Moran and I have been having discussions. As you see, you know, we've released 45%. The county has only released 25%. And their criteria is different than our criteria. So there are positions at the county that are required and positions here. I had a good conversation with Bonnie Weiss last night, you know, and obviously they've been monitoring this fund for several years. They do fund various general positions for us. Obviously, you know, half our budget comes from the county, half our budget comes from outside sources and funding. So, you know, she understands, obviously, if this board is supportive, and obviously, from my conversations with all of you, that you are supportive of this long-term monitoring continuing, that we will work together to find general funds or if there's grants available or whatever. But we had a good conversation, and we will be meeting.
Thank you. I don't know if you need board direction specifically to, you know, and I appreciate Commissioner Overman's opening up this topic. It's something of concern to me as well. And bringing back the first step, maybe as Commissioner Overman suggested, bringing back a financial analysis of exactly what the deficit is, would be projected to be moving forward. What are the current funding sources for the reclamation, monitoring, and maintenance that is currently supporting EPC's work in that regard, but when will that end, and a projection of what the deficit will be? Is that?
Yes, ma'am. If I could clarify, yes, that's exactly what I'd like to ask staff to bring back to either our board or to the BOCC board, or then report to the BOCC board. But I think the other element is also the risk associated with the operators. You know, we have had, I don't know if that's necessary as part of the analysis, but, you know, we have had a circumstance where we didn't have an operator that was able or available because of bankruptcy to do the reclamation. And so an understanding of the risk factors associated with the agreements with the mining agency, whether that be Mosaic or anybody else. I think that also needs to be part of the financial analysis. So if we need a board action, my motion would be that, to provide the financial analysis of the impact of the severance tax being ceased for the various different responsibilities that EPC and the county are to oversee, and to include in that the risk analysis of the mining agencies' obligations and financial responsibilities associated with that.
Yes,
Thank you.
Commissioner, I'll let you know that our financial assessment is $310,000 currently. And obviously, the phosphate severance tax is still funding that. It's still going on, but we'll give you projections. If you would allow me to work with Bonnie Weiss, Kevin Moran, and decide where the most appropriate place to bring that presentation back would be, because they have positions as well. So whether it be the BOC or EPC, if we could have that latitude, we will bring a presentation back.
Absolutely, that's fine.
Yeah, and I think it's a good idea to have the actual board motion and to give that direction. So we've got a motion
So I'll second it.
and a second from Commissioner Kemp. And Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Yes. I was going to say that's a good motion. If you need a second, I'll do it. First off, and
Do you want to speak to the motion and we'll clear that up?
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have to say then for
All
that.
right, let's just take a roll call vote on the motion by Commissioner Overman, seconded by Commissioner Kemp.
Smith,
Yes.
Overman,
Yes.
Cullen, Hagan,
Yes.
Kemp,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried 6-0.
Great, thank you. And now Commissioner Kemp, you're recognized.
Thanks. And I know we've been told that before, but I just can't help the fact that to see that 88% of the fund is swept. That really should go to the 3 counties that have this going on anyway. The good news is, I guess, that we're used to living with 11% of the fund accorded by tonnage to the 3 counties. And, you know, so that, but it's just kind of amazing that the state would be sweeping those just for general funds. So you know, it'll be good to know the actual total impacts financially, fiscally, as we go on for all the things that were mentioned, but especially the functions that are being done now, the monitoring. So that's good for us to prepare for the future with that. I was also interested, actually, I know Commissioner Overman asked about the gopher tortoises, and they said that that was part of something before and could be something in the future. So what does it take to make that happen in the future, at least to be explored? That would be my first question here.
Good question.
Commissioner, we meet with the Mosaic individuals quarterly for the mining and reclamation. And again, we would be happy to put that request out to that group if they have any ideas of any recipient sites or anything like that. And I think Commissioner Overman and I had spoken about maybe even having a group meeting with FWC, ELAP individuals, get everyone to the table to see what sites could be identified for future gopher tortoise relocation. So I will make that happen. We will reach out to Mosaic and see if they are interested and could possibly identify a site for recipient gopher tortoises. They have sites for themselves where they move them around, but I will make that request.
Thank you. And the other is, you know, thank you. I appreciate the being reminded of questions I didn't even know I asked. And probably asked them again yesterday, actually, when getting briefed again and knowing that I'd get more information today, but still I couldn't help. I probably asked him about 5 times without remembering that I asked him. But at any rate, the water, and I know that there was the slide at the beginning with the water. if Mosaic is not mining in Hillsborough County after 2023, so will there still be water permits, water uses from Hillsborough County? Do we know that? Was that, I didn't quite catch.
So, I mean, if you don't mind, I'll run through that data very quickly. They have a.
I might have missed that just when I was like pondering some of this.
Right,
so.
right. No, well, they do use a lot of water in the mining process, okay? But they have a comprehensive permit for 66 million gallons for all their mining operations. They're currently using, if I was correct, 44 million gallons. I think they talked about they had retired 205 wells, but they may enact 90 more wells. But they have a general permit overall. I don't know how that's broken out in Hillsborough County. The one question that was of concern, and it was Commissioner Smith, was the aliphi augmentation. And that number was in the slide, was 4,250,000 gallons per day. And so what will happen when that freshwater flow, when that mining stops, what will happen? Because obviously Tampa Bay Water is taking water out of the aliphi. And also the Lithia Buckhorn is 5,985,000 gallons. And these are 20-year permits. These are lengthy permits that they have, comprehensive permits. But I'm not sure how that will affect Hillsborough County. They do reuse a lot of water in the circulation system around mining. And so a lot of that water is just actually recirculated. So I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know how it's broken out in Hillsborough County, but I'll be happy to see if I can tease that data out for you.
I was just curious due to the fact that we're dealing with Tampa Bay Water and with our water issues and with our water pressure and all that. So I just wondered how that played into, the issues we've been having generally. And I was really pleased, and especially yesterday I asked and had a great, by the way, it was a great presentation, thorough. I always like to have some history, so I feel like I don't understand just from what happened in the 1970s or the 1980s or 2000 and kind of get an idea of how it all developed this way. But so I really appreciate the all the information that was given, very thorough and very good. Ms. James, I know that I had asked before, and I was struggling with this over and over again because it seemed like I kept getting different information about whether you could build like suburbs on reclaimed land, and I had information that happened in the past, and I didn't really have very, I didn't really have quite an answer to that. So I appreciate this, which, and I kind of asked about that yesterday and got that information prior to seeing this, but that in the mid-1980s that there was a development of 1,500 or so in Polk County built on phosphate land that was reclaimed in the older way, and so maybe I'm guessing was less ideal for that type of development, and I don't know what the impacts are now. But other than that, it sounds like there was 565 manufactured homes on another place, and I'm guessing that if it's a manufactured home, if there were issues, it could be moved and wouldn't necessarily be committed to that area. As well, the resort and the mall are in the resort, I guess, is Mosaic owned?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not really familiar with it, but basically, I mean, I think what I'm seeing here is at least not in recent times that has there been like a suburban development put down on formerly mined lands. And so thank you for that answer. That information, because I was trying to figure out if this is something that we need to be thinking about in the future and how that will impact as Mosaic leaves the mining in Hillsborough County. My interest is also in seeing if we could overlay a map of the mining with the reclaimed lands, or the mining that's been left behind where there's been mining over a map of the urban service area. So we can just kind of see how that works. I'm just curious how that works. The other question that I had answered, and I'll just say it wasn't brought up here, but I had been told when I asked about it before that it seemed like some of the land might be very good for solar panel use, for solar panel farm areas, as a use. And I had been at one time, although I found it a little unbelievable, and this is one reason I asked about the housing, that the land was too unstable for solar panels. And I thought, well, if it can't hold solar panels, I know they have some weight, but then then certainly how could we build a suburban neighborhood on it or whatever else? But I guess that is actually quite a possibility for some of it. So I just like to, even though it hasn't been asked or addressed, just like to share that information with the board and everyone else, that was the upshot of that, because I'd heard different things about that, but I'm glad to get an answer on that. So I think with that is kind of my thoughts right now about this. I really appreciate. I think it's good for us to be thinking about where we go in the future with this. And thanks for the very thorough and good presentation.
Thank you. And, that's part of the benefit about bringing these reports here, where we have a little more time than we do at a BOCC meeting, and yet we can begin fleshing out some of these issues in the sunshine, just having a discussion among ourselves, which is otherwise not allowed. About some of the underpinnings of issues that come back to us in many, many forms, from land use to gopher tortoise protections to water use. So I would like to, can we see that slide 19, the water use, just for a minute more on that? I'm really glad that we made this part of today's presentation. It was slide 19 in the presentation. Is it possible to pull that up? Almost there. Slide 19.
Let's see. Is it scrolling?
It's on. We can see your mouse.
Okay.
Maybe just use the up-down arrow keys.
There we go.
Mary, if you want to try the left and right arrows.
I'm using those, and they're not.
Or right-click on the slide and see if it gives you any options to advance. Yeah, if you right-click again, there's an option for next and previous at the top of that menu. Should be able to allow you to navigate those slides.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
And I think that means you can use capital N or capital P, actually.
There you go.
Okay, thanks for your patience.
There we go. Thank you very much for bearing with us. So I just want to get clear. The 69,600,000 gallons per day is allowed average daily use across all the mined areas in the state, essentially, but really just in our few counties here? Or is that the consolidated permit?
I would say it's mostly in the West Central Florida area. There's only one other, which I believe is White Sand, or PCS up in White Sands, Florida. They don't hold the water use permit that Mosaic holds. So I would guess you're looking at Polk, Hillsborough, Hardy, Manatee, those counties. So that is a global permit that encompasses all of those counties.
Okay, and so that's the average daily use over a year, but there also have a peak month withdrawal allowed 87 million gallons per day. So like when we're having maybe a dry season in May, and we're having trouble getting water pressure to our citizens in this very same South County area, they are withdrawing 87 million gallons per day, but across the Swift Mud area.
Across West Central Florida. And again, Mary had mentioned in her slide that they said that what they have been using is 44 million gallons per day. But, that's, crop protection. I mean, many people, Swift Mud gives permits and they give, a peak protection, and then they give what the permit face value is. And unfortunately, you're right. When there's a drought, everybody needs the water. Citizens need the water, ag needs the water. And obviously, they have some sort of a peak quantity.
Right. And so when they, I wasn't clear either, and thank you for asking, but I'm going to have to ask again. When they stop mining in 2023, does the permit expire at that point, or do they?
No.
Do they get to sell that to some other ag uses? What happens?
Nobody gets to sell water. I mean, you can modify permits and have another user on there, and then that other user take the permit. But typically, water is a water of the state. And most times, I'll give you an example when the Mulberry Corporation, I forget what that was called, which obviously they were Piney Point at the time too. When they ceased manufacturing in both their facilities, they retired their quantities. Obviously, it takes a long time to retire quantities, but that Swift Mud will deem where that water goes. And nobody should be selling and can sell water in the state of Florida, a water use permit. Only Swift Mud has the authority to delegate where that water goes.
I'm struck again by how lucky we are to have so much experience in EPC, including your experience with both phosphate and Swift Mud governing board. So on the slide then, with the Alafaya River augmentation, is that water that that's water Mosaic is putting into the Alafaya River, and after they're done?
Correct. They have NPDES permits, so it must meet water quality standards before it's released from the site. And so, yes, that is water that is utilized in processing. I'm not sure at what facility that would be, whether it's IMC New Wales or their Bartow facility. I would assume it's the Bartow facility. And that water then flows down into the Alafaya. And as you know, I used to live on the Alafaya, and before the intake, the barnacles used to be way down the river, and then they were at 301 Bridge, and then they made it halfway up to a restaurant that was between the intake from Tampa Bay Water and 301 Bridge. So obviously fresh water, brackish water, that fresh water is very important to be inundating up down the river, especially for fisheries. Redfish, big time fisheries. Obviously manatee come up and down the Little Manatee River. I know Commissioner White's very familiar with the Alafaya River. So, and again, the Buckhorn Springs, that's a long-term permit that Cargill had, that Mosaic has as well. And these permits are usually for 20 years.
And when you talk about the freshwater augmentation up at the top and the way you've seen the barnacles move up, that's saltwater intrusion.
Correct.
And that also would be getting into the associated wells and groundwater, not just the river. So just
saltwater intrusion could be a problem. The other thing that's interesting is if it kept the salinity kept moving towards the intake of Tampa Bay water, that would also be concerning. And again, we're flush with water right now, but you and I remember the droughts, and we remember the $1 billion worth of projects that were created for Tampa Bay water and the 90 million gallons a day cutback in the northern end of our county. And I think that's what everyone's trying to avoid in the southern end of our county, that there's enough water. That's why it was so important for Tampa Bay water. All these little bits of water add up.
Absolutely. And we've seen the mistakes made in the past. I've personally seen the Peace River ruined by too much water withdrawal. And we certainly don't want that happening to the Alafaya or any of our other rivers.
Or Lithia or Buckhorn. I mean, Kissingen Springs stopped flowing when a lot of these activities started occurring, and it's never flowed again in Polk County.
So we need to remain vigilant. And Commissioner Overman?
Thank you. And to that point, for these rivers that are being impacted by the withdrawal, I think it is important to monitor that progress. The only reason I have any familiarity with that is with the community in Tampa that lives on the lower Hillsborough River ended up in negotiations with Swift Mud, the City of Tampa, Tampa Bay Water, to restore the lower Hillsborough River because there was a lack of appreciation for the damage that was happening to the lower Hillsborough River when there was a decision not to allow water at an appropriate level come over the Rolette Park Dam. In doing that, what we discovered was what seemed like, well, it's a river and there's water in it, so that's fine. But that salinity really matters. You lose your cypress. You lose all of your freshwater fish. You lose certain species that need that fresh water that come up into the rivers to spawn, and permanently lose that sport fish for recreation as well as consumption in our state. So being sensitive to that withdrawal and the long-term impact does put pressure not only on us, but also on Mosaic and the various different mining agencies to be good stewards of that. And I've gotten the impression that they do, because they are taking less than they're permitted. That's great. But I think we do need to be sensitive to those rivers that are at risk. Obviously, what you were describing earlier about the barnacle movement is evidence that there's some withdrawing at a point that could possibly harm that section of the river and the populations associated with it. So I do think it's important for us to pay attention to that. In light of the rest of the discussion, I think it would be valuable to make sure we're also paying attention to the climate risk associated with the gypsum stacks. Because if we were to, while we have a plan for reclamation of the lands, the gypsum stacks stick around for a long time beyond that and have to be monitored and managed. And if we were to experience a category 3, specifically with the unit over near Riverview, there would be a significant breach of that gypsum stack that would require a great deal of environmental restoration and repair and risk associated with it. So I'm glad we're paying attention to these particular items on how the mining will stop, but those stacks don't go away. I mean, it takes, and they have to be monitored, they have to be flushed, they have to be circulated and pumped out. And that pump out typically goes to the rivers? Is that to some degree on overflow, or stored and taken to various other areas for reclamation? Is that accurate? I've forgotten now exactly how that.
Are you talking about gypstack water?
Gypstack water, yes.
Yeah, gypstack water is supposed to, well, right now I'll tell you there's CF Industries is a non-operational plant up at the northern end. And they have areas where they move water around, and sometimes they even truck water off site. I believe I believe they had done some of that for Piney Point as well. You have to have enough freeboard. And that's where there's an issue right now, because every time water comes in contact with that water, rainwater, it now is all processed water. Right. And so managing water is a very delicate balance for the phosphate companies, absolutely. And there's a myriad of things, and Piney Point, now there's a notice of intent to do underwater injection, groundwater injection for that water.
Okay, great, thank you.
And I will say there's there is some financial assurance for $500 million set aside by Mosaic. And I did want to mention the Barnacle area. You know, I worked for CF Industries at one point. This is now Mosaic, but they closed their mining activities. So their freshwater discharges were used to permit outtakes, but then that freshwater went away. And now, again, we're in a flush with water thing, but it'd be interesting to see when drought will come. What goes up must come down. So drought will come again.
And even when we're working with very well-intentioned, sophisticated partners, like whether it's Tampa Bay Water or Mosaic or any of our other industries or who have the best of intentions, it's still very important to have our own monitoring and regulators and watchdogs from our perspective, which to overlay all of that.
All right.
And with that, I think we can wrap up this phosphate discussion. Ms. James, any closing remarks or?
Thank you for listening, and thank you to everyone who helped me put this together.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. And that will take us to the Executive Director's Report.
Awesome.
Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Mary James. That was an excellent presentation. And before I move to my Executive Director Report, I did just want to mention something. Well, there's been a lot of phone calls to commissioners for noise issues, for some establishments, loud music, and we are listening to those. And anytime somebody calls you on a noise issue, please feel free to refer them to us. But, you know, we do try to do compliance assistance. We monitor with very sophisticated equipment. And there's a 10-minute rule, there's a decibel rule. We send out warning notices, so we're looking for corrective action. And obviously, the final things that we can do are citations or consent orders. But I did know if this board was aware, City of Tampa is implementing some new rules for Soho and Ybor City. And if the board is interested, we can bring that back for a very generalized presentation. We can't get into the specifics of any enforcement or warning notices with entities that we're dealing with, because if we go to a citation, that appeal may come to you. But if there is board members are interested, I'd be happy to bring that back as a future item.
I'd just like to say I'd be interested.
Okay, very good. All right. Well, thank you. And so we'll be looking to do that in the near future. So if you'll pull up my slides, James, I'll run through them very quickly. I think Mr. Brewer has them, or somebody at HTV. If they don't,
yes,
I'll just.
By 1 second, sorry.
Do you have them? If not, I'll just run through the dialogue. All right, perfect. Next slide, please. I'm proud of staff who strongly value community support and charitable giving, especially during these difficult times. The Redland Christian Migrant Association provides childcare, education, and resources for some of Florida's most vulnerable children and families. Staff sponsored 85 local RCMA students ranging in age from 3 to 6 years old to help brighten their day with Christmas gifts. Next slide, please. Hillsborough County Aging Services offers services designed to enhance the lives of older adults who are wards of the court. The Elves for Elder program provides gifts and brings cheer to these financially distressed seniors during the holidays. Staff made over $800 in personal contributions and delivered 58 bags of gifts to aging services for these individuals. Metropolitan Ministries is known for its compassion and innovation in assisting struggling families and individuals to achieve their highest potential for self-sufficiency. Our staff donated 385 food items to help feed the hungry for the holidays through their online food drive program. I wish to thank the Philanthropic Committee, our volunteers and staff for their support of all these worthy causes which benefit those who are at high risk in the community. And EPC Senior Attorney Andy Sadro, to my left, had the opportunity to speak to 6 classes at the Safety Harbor Middle School during the Great American Teach-In. His presentation covered how to become an environmental lawyer and the importance of the work they do to help protect water quality as well as marine habitats and wildlife. Next slide. And with that, just making a PSA announcement here. I married George Lorton December 28th, the love of my life. And so next month, my nameplate and letterhead will read Janet Lorton. So with that, our next meeting will be held on February 2nd, 2022. Unless you have any more questions, this concludes my report. We will have a legislative update at that meeting. And Commissioner White, from a PSA standpoint, I think you have an environmental award. Is there somewhere that they can access that if individuals from the public would like to nominate somebody, or we can link it to our website as well?
Yes, I think you're referring to the Theodore Roosevelt Award that I championed the creation of. It's a Board of County Commissioners Award, and it's administered through our Conservation and Environmental Lands Management Department in the county. So there should be information on the web, either through communications or directly through CELM. And yes, we would welcome nominations and look forward to the committee's good work on that and ultimately a recommendation to the board.
Thank you. I think nominations run through the end of the month, correct?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. And we have one more agenda item, and that is the proclamation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my gosh, I apologize. We do have World's Wetland Day. I apologize so much. I had gotten it out of sync and was reading my notes. So with that, I'm going to bring forward Ms. Kim Tapley from our Wetlands Division. Andy was looking at me, so now I understand why. So, Kim, will you bring up the presentation for World Wetlands Day? Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Hello, good morning, Commissioners. My name is Kim Tapley. I'm EPC staff. I am going to go ahead and share my screen just for a very brief PowerPoint. We in the Wetlands Division believe that Wetlands Day is every day, but once a year, the whole world gets to celebrate with us for World Wetlands Day on February 2nd. World Wetlands Day is celebrated every February 2nd, and its focus is to raise global awareness about the vital role of wetlands for people and the planet. The date honors the adoption of the Convention on Wetlands, which was adopted as an international treaty in 1971. This year's 51st anniversary theme is Wetlands Action for People and Nature, which focuses on the conservation, sustainable use, and restoration of wetlands, which is important for human and planetary health. EPC's wetland rule protects wetlands in Hillsborough County, which safeguards our groundwater, surface water, and Tampa Bay, thereby maintaining and preserving our natural flood areas, coastal shorelines, and habitats that are unique to our area. Furthermore, protecting wetlands helps lower flood insurance rates for Hillsborough County residents. As the United Nations has stated on this very important day, we should all reflect on how our society has been affected through the loss and degradation of wetlands, recognize what wetlands do for us now, consider the future challenges we face, and do all we can to ensure that wetlands play a central role in shaping our sustainable future. EPC staff would like to thank our chairwoman, Commissioner Mariella Smith, for sponsoring the proclamation to recognize World Wetlands Day that she will read into the record today. Commissioner Smith, the proclamation is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Tapley. Since the inception of our Hillsborough County Environmental Protection Commission's wetlands rule, our staff has gone to great lengths to protect the wetlands in Hillsborough County and to ensure that development as it occurs, whether it's residential or commercial, it tries the best we can to avoid any impacts at all to wetlands, but where it's absolutely necessary to do the minimum and to mitigate. And because of that, we have done a stellar job in protecting wetlands in this county for a very long time. With the reading of this 2022 proclamation, we promote and encourage action to prevent the loss of valuable wetland resources in support of this important global awareness program. And with that, I'll read the proclamation. Whereas wetlands are critical for protecting the quality of Hillsborough County's aquifer, creeks, lakes, rivers, and springs, in addition to sustaining the region's ecosystem and maintaining flood control. And whereas wetlands are essential for a healthy and productive Tampa Bay, stabilizing shorelines, providing nurseries for fish and rookeries for birds, and serving as an important habitat for numerous estuarine species. And whereas the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County promotes public awareness of the county's valuable wetlands, often referred to as nature's kidneys. And whereas the Environmental Protection Commission supports efforts to safeguard and conserve local wetlands, illustrating the organization's mission to protect the county's natural resources and quality of life. And whereas since the inception of the Environmental Protection Commission's Wetlands Program, wetland impacts have been mitigated through creation, enhancement, and preservation, thereby achieving zero net loss. And whereas the Environmental Protection Commission appreciates residents and numerous organizations and agencies for their stewardship in the conservation of the county's wetland habitats. And whereas World Wetlands Day is an opportunity for residents, government agencies, and non-governmental organizations to undertake actions aimed at raising public awareness of wetland conservation standards and the benefits from these rich environmental resources. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County, Florida, does hereby declare February 2nd, 2022 as World Wetlands Day in Hillsborough County, and encourages all residents and visitors to help support the Environmental Protection Commission in our mission to safeguard the county's wetland habitats and its overall ecosystem. And that is executed this 27th day of January 2022 and signed by all 7 commissioners.
Go wetlands.
Yes, go wetlands. Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Commissioner. It also happens to be Groundhog's Day, but it's so important to support wetlands. And I apologize for forgetting that. I didn't have my agenda in front of me, but very, very important. Thank you so much for making that proclamation, and thanks to all the board for signing on to that proclamation.
We did scramble up the agenda there a little bit, but with that, seeing no other commissioner comment or business, we are adjourned.
Awesome. Have a great weekend.
Oh, like you're a big sports fan.
I actually saw it. I saw the one after. Believe it or not.
I am learning a lot more about sports.
Take care, guys.
Bye.